And I'm very happy to introduce Delphine Levi Alvares, European coordinator of Break Free from Plastic movement. She's been driving force behind development of movement's holistic strategy, linking to broader global movement. And she's been with the movement since 2016, so basically since the inception of Break Free from Plastic. And she worked to connect different European organizations under the common vision of the movement. And she's been also coordinating Rethink Plastic Alliance, Brussels-based policy coalition NGO. Okay, and Delphine is based on Zero Waste Europe, so that's part of the Break Free from Plastic movement, and provides a lot of support and contributions to its work. So I will give the floor now to Delphine to talk about Break Free from Plastic work, and mostly global and European movement envisioning a future free from plastic pollution. So Delphine, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I hope you had a good day of discussion and happy Ocean Day. So I'm here to talk to you about Break Free from Plastic, and we are the global movement to stop plastic pollution for good. So it started with like this assessment a few years back that we are in a plastic pollution crisis, and that has so many different dimensions. And just to give you like two numbers, roughly half of all the plastic ever made was made since the years 2000. So it has been a very rapidly growing issue. And 40% of plastic that we produce is for one-time use packaging. So it's just like an ecological nonsense. And back in 2015, 8 organizations came together with this one dream of building a future free from plastic pollution. And it was rooted in Southeast Asia, in particular, because we wanted to fight this narrative that plastic pollution was because of poor waste management in Southeast Asia. Working already there through the Gaia network, we knew from our colleagues at Eco Waste Coalition or China Zero Waste Alliance or Mother Earth Foundation in the Philippines that there was another story to be told, and the story was around all the ways that we are exporting there without any control on where it's ending up, all the products that our multinationals are putting on the market without taking responsibility for the waste at the end of life. So there was much more to this story than what the media were showing us. And so those 8 organizations, including my organization, Zero Waste Europe, came together to start organizing around this topic and create a movement. Fast forward, we are almost 2,000 organizations around the world 4 years later who are working together to build this future free from plastic pollution. We have this common goal of bringing a systemic change all along the value chain. We're focusing on prevention rather than cure, and we're focusing on piloting, mainstreaming, and building the supportive policies for effective solutions to become the norm. We have a holistic strategy that starts with changing the story around plastic, changing the dominant narrative, and really telling the story from beginning to the end of the value chain. Changing corporate behavior to really trigger a change in business models that is built more towards prevention and reuse and towards single use and recycling. An enabling ecosystem for that, not only for optimized waste management, but also for zero waste business models to thrive, is zero waste cities. So we're working all over the world on building zero waste cities, working with decision makers. I'll go back to that. And if you look at the value chain, there are intersections with a lot of different movements. You guys are working a lot on ocean pollution issues, so it's really linked, and we're connecting a lot with people working on conservation. We're working on connecting with oil and gas movement and climate movement, anti-fracking movement, because plastic comes from oil and gas. We're working with consumer organizations, organizations focusing on health, workers' rights, women's rights. It's a very broad movement, and there are a lot of intersections that create very interesting synergies with other movements. In Europe in particular, we've been working since the beginning on building this movement and a movement that looks like us, that looks like a diverse Europe, that looks like the diversity of the topics we're covering. So this is us today. It's about 95 active members, and we have a couple more hundred of associate partners that are amplifying the work we do. And this is us last year when we could gather in person. And we have an expertise all along the value chain. So it's really, the objective of this movement was to break the walls between the different environmental organization sectors. So really have people starting to talk to each other and really understand what everyone was doing on the topic and how it actually links, and how we have to build like more solid proposals that are really rooted into the reality. So having environmental organizations understanding where plastics come from and the issues with, for example, incineration, having climate organizations understanding what happens with plastic after oil and gas extraction. So really trying to make everyone understand what are the links between the different aspects of the topic. Some of our adventures, more than lessons learned from the past 4 years, we've been really working on influencing policies in Europe. So at national level, there has been a lot of developments of countries adopting far-reaching policies in the EU, but also discussions in non-EU European member states. In Brussels, at the EU level in particular, the Rethink Plastic Alliance, which is the EU policy arm of the Break Free from Plastic movement, has been working on influencing EU legislation. The famous Single-Use Plastic Directive that you probably all have heard about at some point regulates a certain amount of items, the ones that you find the most in the litter that you find in the environment. So a lot of EU-wide bans, but also producer responsibility schemes to have producers not only covering the waste management costs of certain items, but also the cleanup and prevention costs. And that's in particular the case for cigarette butts. So we're having the tobacco industry paying for that, and they woke up a little late, so now they're not really happy about it. We're also working on improving the traceability of harmful chemicals all along the value chain, in particular to prevent toxic recycling. The objective is really to have a database, and it's something that we have secured at the EU level and that is being trialed at the moment. Having the information all along the value chain on what are the chemicals, and especially the harmful ones, that are in those products from the conception stage all the way to end of life, so that we can really clean the circular economy loop and guarantee that recycled materials are safe to be used. Some work has been done as well, a little bit less visible, but very important, on port reception facility. So it's all about waste from ships, and also encouraging them to really bring back waste to the port, and also if they collect things in the ocean, to bring it back and not being penalized for it, not being penalized to kind of cleaning up the ocean. We have worked a lot on global policy. So the European Union has fought for ambition within the United Nations Environment Assembly, and especially we've been working on a series of resolutions that will hopefully eventually lead to have a global governance mechanism on plastic pollution that is going to basically help coordinating between the existing instruments we have, but also fill the gaps. And those gaps are mostly in terms of upstream measures, funding and research, to really have a holistic answer to the plastic pollution crisis, but really globally. So these are discussions that we're having, and we've been working with decision makers a lot to really push for that. We have shed a light on the link between plastic and climate change, and there have been some key reports coordinated by CIEL, the Center for International Environmental Law, in particular the one on plastics and climate, so showing the impact of plastic all along the value chain, not only at the extraction, but also the consumption, the disposal. When plastic degrades in the environment, it also releases emissions. So all that is in this report. It's been a collaborative report. We have been calling out the petrochemicals industry, really showing the link between the pipelines and the actual consumption of single use, because plastic turns out to be a supply-driven issue. We don't have plastic because we need plastic or we're asking for plastic. We have plastic because it is a very profitable byproduct of the petrochemicals industry. And it's been fueling on the fracking boom in the US. That's why since the 2000s, we have so much single-use plastic coming on the market. It coincides with this fracking boom there. And they were using all the byproducts to actually make it the most profitable. Oh. And we've also been showing how it is very convenient for the petrochemical industry to keep maintaining this idea that plastic is a marine litter issue, because then you look at it as a waste management issue. You don't look at it as a production issue. So we've been really showing those different dimensions so that we can really go back to the root causes of the problem and actually turn the tap at the source, not really trying to sponge the water on the floor, really going back to where it starts. We've been, as I was saying, highlighting the dependency between the fracking industry and the cheap plastic production, really showing how much this was linked and basically putting in the spotlight some key companies in this fight against plastic production. In particular, Ineos, which is the first producer of virgin plastic in Europe, that is importing and investing a lot in fracking and in pipelines to really import frack gas in Europe and produce virgin plastic there. But they also have business in China and in other places. So really showing the other side of the plastic pollution issue. This has proven to be quite efficient. We've managed to displace the debate to plastic being solely a marine litter issue to an actual climate issue, a production issue, oil and gas issue. We've been changing the perception that plastics are safe. Since plastic was invented and kind of mainstreamed after World War II, there was this story around the fact that it was hygienic, that it was safe, that it was much better than anything, helping fighting the disease. The fact that we're using plastic in the health sector has been fueling the work of the petrochemicals industry. You've seen that with the COVID-19 crisis, how much they have surfed on this wave. It was about showing that it's actually not true, that this is actually serving a lot of economic interest. There has been another major report coordinated by CIEL on plastic and health, showing again the impacts of plastics on health all along the value chain, from the fracking to the end of life, but also at the consumption level when you are using plastic in your daily life. I put this one because it's Leonardo DiCaprio and I have a thing for him, but basically to show you the outreach of this research work. And I think you had David in your previous panel. I'm not sure he's still here, but if he's still, hi. And in terms of showing the consumption and the health aspect at the consumption level, there is this other work that is ongoing on food contact material, showing how much we have chemicals in the very plastic that is wrapping our food, the food we eat, the food we give to our children. So it's really important that people realize that, because it's not written anywhere necessarily on the packaging. And other project research have been looking at the impact of plastic at different stages of life for different diseases. So this is out there. We are challenging big companies to reduce their plastic footprint. This was done through mostly the brand audits. So it's kind of a cleanup 2.0. So you don't only go out to clean up the beach, you also sample, look at the brands you find, the type of packaging, and then we rank them. So it's a massive data collection and analysis that we've done with thousands of organizations around the world who have participated in that effort. And then we've been ranking those organizations for about 2 or 3 years now. Coke is always the first one. It's the number of items. It's not the weight, because the weight is not necessarily a good indication. This is the number of items that you can see here. We have used some of this weight that we've collected to kind of hold the big brands accountable for the products they put on the market. So this is a plastic monster in a tour organized by Greenpeace, and they went to Unilever headquarters with this monster asking for Unilever ditching single-use plastic, basically. And they have had some successes because companies are making commitments. We are still waiting to see those commitments becoming reality, but at least the discussion is happening. Some organizations have also worked with retailers, so also holding retailers accountable for the kind of products they put on the shelves. And this is work that has been done in the UK, ranking some of the biggest retailers in the UK. And this has also had some successes with some major retailers committing to switch to packaging-free kind of items, especially for fruit and vegetables. And we're exposing a lot of the issues, but we're also at the same time offering solutions, because otherwise that would be incomplete. So we've been putting the alternatives in the spotlight. So not only the very nice and trendy zero waste lifestyle that you can see here, but also really working on zero waste business models and showcasing some of the best practices that we have seen in Europe and supporting entrepreneurs in developing those alternatives. While working on the policies that are going to support the mainstreaming and the upscaling of those business models. We have exposed global north responsibility and global plastic pollution crisis. So these are pictures from, this one is from Malaysia. So you see European waste in landfills in Indonesia. So this is Indonesia, for example, here. This is Tetra Pak from Italy, that you find in a random remote village in Indonesia. You have Dutch Gouda packaging, Greek Coca-Cola packaging, all that found in Indonesia. And we have also pictures from many other places. So this is really to show there is no way when you throw something away, it always ends up somewhere. And if you can't guarantee that this is going to be properly recycled, you should just not buy it. And in the first place, you should not be putting it on the market. We have been working on, based on this analysis and these stories from the global south on waste trade and the impact of the trade of our waste towards those countries, on supporting better regulation on the export of plastic waste and lobbying the EU so that they would support it too. And there was an amendment to the Basel Convention adopted last year that is now putting mixed plastic waste under the category of waste that is subjected to prior informed consent, meaning that now countries who want to export plastic waste to third countries have to ask for their agreement, which is really new when it comes to mixed plastic waste trade. We've been supporting zero waste cities in Europe a lot, and communities to go towards zero waste. So through training of decision makers and local activists, through programs around communities, and it all takes different forms and shapes depending on the country and the organization. And this year and onward, we are going to be working a lot on picking virgin plastic production and import in Europe, focusing a lot on stopping the petrochemicals build out in Europe, and in particular this project in Antwerp, led by INEOS. It's also about regulating any pellet loss and really trying to eliminate pellet loss. So we've been hacking the International Mermaids Day. There is such a thing as International Mermaids Day, to talk about pellet loss, because pellets are also known as mermaid tears. It's a beautiful story told by the industry. These are not pellets, these are mermaid tears. So this is something that we're working on at the EU level a lot, and there's a lot of citizen science to back that up, especially with the Great Nodal Hunt that has been organized for many years by FIDRA, the Scottish-based organization. We are working on the middle of the value chain to make materials, products, and delivery systems designed for circularity. This is going through the implementation of the Single-Use Plastic Directive in all countries, so we're producing a lot of material to support that. We are having a lot of work around plastic ritualize, so it's coming up. It's around lifestyle, but not only. Plastic Bag Free Day is also coming up. It's around pushing for reuse. It's around pushing for refill. There will be the International Refill Day. And the toxics angle is really present. So it's really cleaning up, phasing out toxics at source so that we don't consume toxic plastic, we don't recycle toxic plastic. And we also have to ask ourselves, like, what kind of material do we want to put in our mouth, or like all of that. Microplastics, I know it's a topic that is interesting for you all. We're working on this restriction of intentionally added microplastics at the EU level through the European Chemicals Agency. And we are going to be working on making sure that we are ending waste trade, and that we're not, that we're managing all the remaining plastic waste properly. So it's going to be about a lot the revision of the waste shipment regulation, preventing a wild development of chemical recycling and plastics to fuel in particular. And last but not least, this is all part of this work on the narrative to write the new story of plastic. There has been this plastic atlas showing all different dimensions of the issue. And the Story of Plastic movie has been released on the 22nd of April. It's available, I don't want to say it, but I have to say it, on Amazon Prime. And you can organize community screenings anywhere and can just reach out to the team to organize that, to show it for free to your community. And that's it for me. Thank you very much.